Tupac turns on the radio while making breakfast and hears the DJ say, "Breaking news, rapper Tupac Shakur was found dead this morning in his Oakland home." Tupac drops his coffee mug. He's standing in his kitchen, very much alive, listening to his own obituary being read on live radio. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Oakland, California, November 3rd, 1994. Thursday morning, 7:15 a.m. The autumn air carries the scent of eucalyptus trees and morning fog rolling off San Francisco Bay. Most of the city is waking up slowly, hitting snooze buttons, starting coffee makers, checking traffic reports before beginning another ordinary day. In neighborhoods like East Oakland, mornings feel safer than nights, when darkness hides violence and police sirens become the neighborhood's lullaby. Tupac Shakur's kitchen faces east, catching the first rays of sunlight that manage to break through the perpetual Bay Area fog. The house is quiet, peaceful in a way that luxury can't buy, the kind of silence that comes from security systems, privacy gates, and distance from the chaos that defined his childhood. At 23, he's achieved something most people from his neighborhood never experienced: the ability to wake up in a place that belongs to him, where the only sounds are birds chirping and coffee brewing instead of gunshots and ambulance sirens. He's wearing gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt, barefoot on cold kitchen tiles, moving through the ritual that starts every day. Coffee first, always coffee, the kind of dark roast that cuts through exhaustion and late-night studio sessions. Then orange juice, wheat toast with butter, sometimes eggs if he has time. Simple food that reminds him of childhood mornings when a Feeny would cook whatever they could afford. The radio sits on the counter next to the toaster, an old boom box he's had since his teenage years in Baltimore, too sentimental to replace despite being able to afford better equipment. It's tuned to KML 106.1, the Bay Area's hip-hop station, where DJs spin the kind of music that shaped his adolescence and now includes his own tracks in regular rotation. The morning show is just beginning, that familiar voice of DJ Marcus Johnson cutting through static and commercials with the kind of smooth professionalism that makes radio feel intimate despite reaching hundreds of thousands of listeners. Marcus has interviewed Tupac several times, always respectful, always asking real questions instead of the superficial garbage that most media focuses on. Today feels like any other Thursday morning broadcast until Marcus's tone shifts from casual to urgent. The DJ interrupts regular programming for breaking news that has just reached the newsroom. Tupac pauses mid-pour, coffee streaming from the pot into his mug, some part of his brain registering that breaking news at 7:15 a.m. usually means someone died, some tragedy that will dominate headlines for days before being forgotten in favor of the next tragedy. He's learned to expect bad news, living in a world where violence is constant and young men disappear regularly. But he doesn't expect the news to be about him. The announcement comes like a punch to the chest. Rapper Tupac Shakur was found dead this morning in his Oakland home, according to sources close to the Oakland Police Department. The coffee mug slips from Tupac's hand like his fingers suddenly forgot how to grip porcelain. It hits the kitchen floor with a crash that seems impossibly loud in the morning quiet, coffee splashing across white tiles, ceramic fragments scattering under cabinets. But Tupac doesn't notice the mess at his feet because his brain is trying to process information that doesn't compute with reality. He's standing in his kitchen, breathing, heart beating, blood flowing, very much alive, and listening to a radio DJ announce his death to the entire Bay Area. The DJ continues with details that make Tupac's blood freeze. The 23-year-old artist, known for controversial tracks like Brenda's Got a Baby and Trapped, was reportedly discovered by his housekeeper around 6 a.m. this morning. Cause of death has not been released, but sources suggest it may have been related to ongoing conflicts within the hip-hop community. Tupac's legs feel weak. He grips the counter for support, staring at the radio like it might explain how he's simultaneously dead and alive, how his obituary is being broadcast while he's standing in his own kitchen, listening to it. This isn't possible. This isn't how reality works. People don't hear their own death announcements unless they're dreams or nightmares or some kind of psychological break from stress and paranoia. But the coffee spreading across his floor is real. The broken mug is real. The DJ's voice is real, professional and somber, in the way that news voices become when reporting tragedy. Marcus continues reading what sounds like a prepared statement, complete with biographical details, career highlights, and quotes from unnamed sources expressing grief and shock. The biographical summary unfolds like a eulogy. Born in East Harlem, raised in Baltimore and Oakland, Tupac Amaru Shakur burst onto the music scene with raw lyrics about street life, police brutality, and social injustice. His debut album Tupacalypse now sparked national controversy, but established him as one of hip-hop's most provocative voices. Hearing his life summarized in past tense while he's living it creates a disorientation that goes beyond confusion into something approaching existential terror. Someone wrote an obituary for him while he was sleeping. Someone prepared this news story, gathered quotes, compiled biographical information, planned this announcement. This isn't spontaneous. This is orchestrated. His phone starts ringing. The landline in the kitchen, shrill and urgent in a way that makes his already frayed nerves jump. He stares at it for 3 rings, 4 rings, afraid to answer, because if he's officially dead, if the world believes he's dead, then who is calling and what do they want? On the 5th ring, he picks up and hears his mother's voice, broken and crying, barely recognizable through grief that sounds like drowning. She's heard the news and needs confirmation that her son is alive. The relief in her voice when he confirms he's standing in his kitchen is so profound it makes his chest ache. But she's confused and terrified, asking who would do this and why the entire world thinks he's dead. Before he can process the conversation fully, call waiting beeps, then beeps again. Then again. Every few seconds, another incoming call from people who heard the news, people trying to confirm or deny, people expressing condolences for a death that hasn't occurred. His phone becomes a constant symphony of beeping, each sound representing someone who believes he's gone. He tells his mother he'll call her back and hangs up, immediately overwhelmed by the scope of what's happening. This isn't a simple mistake or miscommunication. Someone orchestrated a fake death announcement professional enough to fool radio stations, comprehensive enough to include biographical details and quotes, timed precisely to reach maximum audience during morning drive time. Tupac turns up the radio, hoping for some clarification, some correction, some indication that this is a horrible error that will be fixed with an apology and explanation. Instead, he hears other stations picking up the story, local news programs interrupting regular programming, the narrative spreading like wildfire across Bay Area media. The confirmations multiply across different outlets. Multiple sources verify the death of rapper Tupac Shakur. The Oakland Police Department hasn't released an official statement, but early reports suggest the artist was found unresponsive in his home this morning. Multiple sources, official-sounding confirmations, details that make the story believable to people who don't know he's standing in his kitchen, listening to reports of his own death. Someone didn't just call in a false tip. Someone created an entire infrastructure of fake information, fake sources, fake confirmations that feel real enough to convince professional journalists. His answering machine light blinks frantically, filled to capacity with messages he's afraid to hear. The phone keeps ringing. Outside he hears cars slowing down in front of his house, voices talking loudly, the kind of activity that happens when news crews and curious neighbors gather around tragedy. Tupac walks to his front window and carefully peers through closed blinds. 3 news vans are already parked outside his gate. Reporters are setting up cameras, preparing for live broadcasts from the scene of his alleged death. A small crowd of neighbors and fans has gathered on the sidewalk, some crying, some holding flowers, all mourning someone who's watching them from his living room window. The surreal horror of the situation hits him fully. The world believes he's dead. News organizations are reporting his death as fact. People are grieving for him. Memorial tributes are probably being prepared. Record sales are likely spiking as people rush to buy albums from their favorite deceased artist. And he's standing in his house, very much alive, watching his own funeral preparations. But why? Who benefits from making the world think Tupac Shakur is dead? Record label executives, who own his masters and profit more from a dead artist than a living one, enemies who want to see how the world reacts to his death before making it real, law enforcement agencies trying to see who celebrates or who comes out of hiding when they think he's gone. The phone rings again, this time it's his cousin Qatari, calling from New York, voice tight with controlled grief. Qatari asks if the news is fake, pleading for confirmation that Tupac is okay. When Tupac confirms he's alive, Qatari's relief is audible, but his confusion deepens. Who would orchestrate such an elaborate deception, and why? Before Tupac can formulate an answer, he hears something that makes his blood freeze. Footsteps on his front porch. Heavy, deliberate, multiple people moving with purpose. Then knocking, official and insistent in a way that suggests law enforcement. Through the blinds, he sees two Oakland police detectives, badges visible, standing at his front door with the kind of serious expressions that police wear when delivering bad news to families. But what bad news are they here to deliver? That he's dead. To him, while he's alive. The knocking continues. One detective announces their presence as Oakland PD, stating they need to speak with whoever's in the house. Tupac realizes the impossible situation he's in. If he answers the door, he proves he's alive, but he also exposes the fake death story as orchestrated deception, which might make him a target for whoever arranged it. If he doesn't answer, the police might break down the door as part of their investigation into his supposed death. He makes a decision that feels like stepping off a cliff into darkness. He opens the door, the two detectives stare at him like they're seeing a ghost. One actually takes a step backward, hand moving instinctively toward his weapon before stopping. The other detective, a woman in her 40s with gray streaking through black hair, looks from Tupac to a file in her hand and back to Tupac. She addresses him by name, confirming his identity, then explains the impossible situation. They received reports that he was found dead in this residence this morning. Tupac's response is simple and undeniable, as they can see he's not dead. The confusion on their faces is genuine. These officers didn't orchestrate the fake death. They're responding to reports they believed were real, investigating what they thought was a crime scene. Which means someone called the police, someone provided detailed information, someone convinced law enforcement that Tupac Shakur was deceased. The female detective, Sergeant Rodriguez, according to her name tag, explains that they received multiple calls starting at 5:45 a.m. reporting a deceased individual at this address. The calls included specific details about how the body was discovered, what room it was found in, even what he was wearing. Someone provided enough information to convince dispatch that this was a legitimate death investigation. But who has that kind of access to his personal information? Who knows his address, his daily routines, what he wears to bed? The level of detail suggests someone close to him, someone with intimate knowledge of his life, someone he trusts enough to let into his private space. As Sergeant Rodriguez talks, Tupac's phone rings again. This time, he recognizes the number, his record label. He answers, expecting his manager or publicist calling about the death reports. Instead, he hears a voice he doesn't recognize. Calm, professional, neither threatening nor friendly. The caller expresses hope that Tupac is enjoying his obituary. The detectives notice his expression change. Tupac puts the phone on speaker so they can hear. The caller identifies himself as someone who wanted to show Tupac how easy it would be to make his death real instead of fake. How quickly the world moves on. How little effort it takes to convince everyone that Tupac Shakur no longer exists. When Tupac asks what they want, the voice explains their purpose. Tupac's attention. His understanding that his life is more fragile than he thinks. His awareness that they can end his career, his reputation, his existence anytime they choose. The voice continues, explaining that this morning's fake death announcement was a demonstration of power, a preview of what could happen if Tupac doesn't modify his behavior, his lyrics, his public statements. The caller represents interests that prefer their activities remain unexamined, their methods undiscussed, their existence unacknowledged in hip-hop music. The ultimatum is clear. Tupac has a choice. Continue making music that questions authority, that exposes corruption, that inspires resistance, and next time the death announcement will be real. Or focus his considerable talents on safer subjects and enjoy a long, profitable career making entertainment instead of revolution. The line goes dead. Sergeant Rodriguez looks at Tupac with new understanding. This isn't a random hoax or publicity stunt. This is sophisticated psychological warfare designed to terrorize someone into silence. The fake death announcement was just the opening move in a larger campaign of intimidation. Over the following days, the truth emerges slowly. The fake death reports originated from multiple sources simultaneously: a supposed housekeeper calling 911, anonymous tips to news organizations, leaked police reports that were fabricated but convincing. Someone with significant resources and inside knowledge of media operations orchestrated a campaign designed to convince the entire Bay Area that Tupac was dead. The investigation reveals connections to various interests threatened by Tupac's music record industry executives who profit from safer artists, law enforcement agencies criticized in his lyrics, political figures who prefer entertainers stay entertaining instead of becoming activists. The fake death wasn't random. It was a coordinated response to an artist who refused to stay in his lane. But the plan backfired. Instead of terrorizing Tupac into silence, the fake death announcement showed him exactly how much his voice mattered to people who wanted it silenced. Instead of proving his powerlessness, it demonstrated the lengths powerful people would go to stop him from speaking truth. The story spreads through hip-hop communities, through neighborhoods where young people understand the difference between entertainment and resistance. Tupac's fake death becomes real proof that his music matters enough to threaten people with real power, real money, real motivation to silence voices that challenge systems of oppression. 6 months later, Tupac releases an album titled Reports of My Death, featuring tracks about the morning he heard his own obituary, the people who wanted him silenced, and the realization that being dangerous to the wrong people means you're valuable to the right people. The title track samples the original radio announcement, turning his fake death into art that proves his very real life matters more than his enemies hoped. The morning he heard his own death taught Tupac that some threats are compliments in disguise, that being targeted by powerful people means you're powerful enough to be worth targeting. That sometimes the greatest honor is being considered dangerous by people who profit from keeping others safe. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.